Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.
So the question, is 63 too old to be a YouTuber? If you'd asked me that question a few months ago, I would have said yes. If you ask me that question now, I say, of course it isn't. Anyone can get on YouTube. And by getting on there, you can have your say in your own way without any censorship. It's the true definition of free speech. Good afternoon. Welcome to the John Gaunt podcast. If you've been listening to me for some time, you'll know that I've been making podcasts and putting them up on all the platforms like Apple. I've now got video as well, and so I'm on YouTube as well. And I've found it to be a revelation. For those of you who don't know me that well, I used to be quite a well-known talk or radio broadcaster until I effed it all up when I called a counsellor a Nazi. Well, in my opinion, he was, because he wanted to ban people, mainly working class people, from fostering or adopting children if they smoked. He thought the dangers of passive smoking, this is about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was more dangerous than abuse in a residential children's home. I was in care myself as a kid. My mum died when I was 11, about this time of year, actually. It was around Christmas time. I got pushed from relative to relative. My dad couldn't cope. I'm cutting the story short here, by the way. And I ended up in a residential home. And I said to this counsellor, you're talking rot. The woman who saved me was my auntie, or Rosemary. I don't know if you've had aunties like this. We didn't really know her when we were growing up, but she was a matron in a hospital. And she came along and she said, if you live by my rules, you can come and live with me in Hull. I went to Hull in Humberside, Yorkshire, whatever you want to call it, and actually had the time of my life. And she saved my life. She diverted me away from the way I was going, because when I was in the home, I was getting into bad ways. We'll leave it at that. But when this counsellor wanted to ban smoking, I was writing for The Sun at the same time, and I basically said in an article in The Sun that this was wrong. The last people to ban smoking were the Nazis. And I wrote the article, it was a full page. I wrote the article with all sort of Nazi imagery. I thought it was quite funny. So did the editor. It went down a storm. Then I interviewed the counsellor on my radio show on so-called shock jockery. What was it called at the time? It was called Talk Sport. I did the mid-morning show. It's still going as a sports show. But I called him a Nazi. I also called him an ignorant pig. I shouldn't probably have done that bit, but the Nazi, I thought I was pretty accurate. He never complained. 57 other people did. And because of the ridiculous way that mainstream radio in this country is regulated, Ofcom, the regulator people complain to, and the way that radio stations mitigate any problems is they sack the presenter. So they employ you to be outrageous. They employ you to say the unsayable, and when you say it, they basically leave you out, or they throw you under the bus. That's what happened to me. But I took it all the way to the European courts because I thought it was an injustice. I think I was right. Well, I was proved right, wasn't I? Because a few years later, all the stories came out about the child abuse in children's homes. And remember, please remember, 60,000 children are still in residential care in England and Wales alone at this moment. Nobody special to say to them when they come in from school, what did you get up to today? No one to tuck them up in bed. No one to read them a story. Don't get me wrong. I'm not having a go at all social workers or all residential care workers. They do a very, very difficult job. However, it's better to get kids in a loving family with parents who want them, isn't it? Let's get fostering and adoption made easier with the right safeguards in place. Well, that was where I was coming from. But this thing about the regulation, the radio station threw me under the bus to save their skin. The newspapers, of course, don't have a regulator, and they shouldn't have one, because if you believe in the freedom of the press and free speech, you should be, as a social commentator, allowed to say things like that. You're being a Nazi about this, mate. You should. And I believe in it. I believe that intrinsically. I could have apologized, and if I did, I think they'd have still got rid of me because they wanted to do a football phone-in. They're much more interested in talking at that time about Wayne Rooney's metatarsals or David Beckham's groin strain than actually talk about important issues. They've got their own little station now, like a talk radio station, but it's so controlled because of the way our media is. I worked for a national newspaper, I worked for The Sun, and that was great as well, and I did have complete freedom. But even so, in the end, they can take away the page from you. Just like on the mainstream radio, they can take away the microphone. So here I am now on YouTube and on podcasts, on Apple. You can get me everywhere, as you know, Spotify. And what I think is important, and it's just come as a coincidence, really, is that now freedom of speech is so under attack, we need other places to speak. You can't get it in a regulated broadcasting or the press. Look at the BBC. They're just a mouthpiece for whoever's in government at the time. Today, there's this big demonstration about the farmers. The BBC are almost ignoring it. The government are going to ignore it. All those tractors today around Westminster and Whitehall. I'm with the farmers. But like the petition a few weeks ago, Keir Starmer, 4 million people signed up to say, we need another election. I did. I didn't want the election. I wanted him to listen and say, oh, maybe I did get it wrong on the winter fuel. He should do a U-turn about the farmers and say, I've got it wrong. Not totally, but maybe the limit, instead of it being X million, it needs to be 10 million. So it's not small farms who are going to be affected. Winter fuel allowance. Okay, you're a multimillionaire or a millionaire. You don't need it, mate. Just put it at the right point. But at the moment, 10 million people are going to be damaged by losing that winter fuel allowance. They even said themselves that people will die as a result of it. This is the Labour Party. But they're so useless and they're so arrogant. And Starmer is a smarmer. He's so up himself, right? If he was made of chocolate, he'd eat himself, starting with his own head. So what's this got to do with free speech, Gaunty? Well, this is what it's got to do with. I could have apologized. I could have probably wheedled my way back into the mainstream. But just before, I then got seriously ill just recently. I had sepsis. Terrible. If you ever have any idea that you could have it, don't do what I did. Get to the doctors or the hospital as quickly as you can. It's a killer, an absolute killer. But that came at the same time I was doing bits and bobs on telly, and I was kind of getting fed up of just being duffed up by kids, really. I'm 63, and I'm not going to apologize. I'm 63, and I'm now on podcasts. I'm now on YouTube, but I've got creative and political freedom. I've got freedom of speech. Elon Musk is one of the greatest things to happen to the world, and especially to the UK. I know some people don't like him. The man is the Einstein of his generation. The man is going to Mars. Have you seen the way he can capture those rockets and bring them back down? Have a look at the Teslas. They're the only electric car that's any good. I'm not going to talk about the Jaguar. What an absolute disgrace that is, and an insult to the heritage of Jaguar and the Coventry workforce that built it. I'm from Coventry, just in case you don't know that as well. However, I've now got creative freedom. And what happened to me was, I was going and doing these TV shows. You get 250 quid, 300 quid, depending on what it is. And you go on and you have a dust-up. You've all seen it. The Jeremy Wine Show, programs like that, GB News. But it's all staged, not so much GB News, but it's kind of stage managed. They cast it. They know what I'm going to say. They know what the person who's the right wing or the left wing person is going to say. There's normally 2 against 1. And my daughter summed it up. She said, Dad, don't you get fed up of just arguing? I said, no, I love it. That's my life. She said, no, it's tedious. You have a row and nothing changes because the government don't listen. And that's true. It's that old song, isn't it? No point in voting because whoever you vote for, the government always get in. Or should I say, the civil service. And Starmer's a prime example. He's not going to change. He's only going to he's going to get forced out probably by, how would I put it? What was that famous quote? Events, dear boy, events. I think it was Gladstone, was it? Or Disraeli? Basically saying you can plan for anything. Like he was planning for 2 terms, Starmer, but events can come along and derail you. I can't say much more at the moment, but I think he'll get derailed by events, either in the past or in the future, or indeed in the present. I can't say any more than that unless I want to go to jail, right? So I think that's what's going to happen to him. But he was hoping to have 2 terms. But the problem is with this particular government, they're going to be lucky to survive much after Christmas because they're all naive. They're all farmers. Look at 6 farmers. He's the Farmer Harmer Starmer, isn't he? He's 2-tier care. He's got his student politics front and central. And then he's got people like Lammy. He's got people like Reeves, the Chancellor, the pensioner stealer, yeah? Her. And then you've got that other one, Haig, the Transport Secretary woman who had to resign because she lost the phone, found it again, but didn't tell the police. And then it comes out she'd done it several times. And she wanted to be a Minister of State. You got to vet Cooper, yeah? She's going to stop the boats. Oh, yeah. Crush a grape, tear a tissue, or rip the arm off an action man. They'll achieve sweet FA. And don't get me wrong, the Tories, they're now moaning and saying this and that and the rest of it. And, of course, the answer to them is, why didn't you fix it in the last 14 years? Why didn't you fix the small boats coming in? Why didn't you fix the situation? And like now, the Syrians, why don't they go home? They can all go home now. All the ones who are here because of the dictator who ran the country, he's been deposed. So surely it's okay for them to go back. Let's stop all the asylum claims from any Syrians and let them go back. That would ease so many problems in this country. Do you agree? If you do, send me an email. It's john@johngaunt.com. If you're listening on a podcast, the old-fashioned way, don't forget I now am on YouTube. It's John Gaunt TV. So I was telling you how I got into this situation. I developed sepsis just at the time when I was getting so fed up of being a pantomime clown, being a kind of being paid just to go. I said to Lisa once, I came back from a gig and I said, I may as well have Lonsdale written down the front of my shirt. She said, why? I said, because I'm just a bloody punch bag. You just go on and you got kids who've barely started to shave. And I'm talking about the women. They try to duff you up. They know nothing about the world, nothing about politics, haven't had children themselves, don't know, haven't got any. I used to have this theory that until you have your own dustbin, it was only half a joke, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. I used to have this theory as well that unless you've had children, you shouldn't be an MP, because how do you understand family life? I mean, I know that can, well, it used to, therefore mean that gay people and lesbians couldn't be MPs. Of course, now they can, because everybody can have children now, can't they? 2 men, right? Steve and Steve can have. It doesn't have to be Adam and Eve anymore. Huh? It can be Adam and Steve. Anybody can have kids. It's a free-for-all. I'm not sure it's a good thing for society. Although I did talk about this when I was on BBC London and I had some lesbian women phone me up. I had a lot of lesbian listeners there. But they said, well, John, we were in abusive relationships. And when we left that relationship with a man and I got together with this woman, we've brought up the children together and it's been brilliant. You know, they've had what they call a blended family. And I had to listen with real interest, because I think you can have 2 mums or 2 dads and not be a problem. I'm not so keen on creating life. I'm just being honest. Now, this would get me thrown off traditional radio if I said this. I'm not so keen on IVF for same-sex couples. I'm not. They want to adopt, got no problem with that. Or foster, no problem with that. Although this counsellor would if they dared to want a cigarette. Anyway, so do you see where I'm coming from? So, anyway, back to where I was. So I was just fed up of being duffed up and just fed up of being almost a pantomime dame. I thought I was turning into Mike Parry, which for me is a nightmare. Nice guy, but he's a caricature. I don't want to be that. I didn't want to be it. And then suddenly I've got this terrible pain. And I'm going to be honest with you today and tell you about my sepsis. I used to get boils on my bottom, or my arse. But kind of apt, really, because a lot of people think I am a pain in the arse. Just now and again, I used to have diabetes, really bad, type 2, right? So, and I used to get rid of this just by having salt baths, very hot, and then it would go. This one didn't go. And I was in agony, real agony. I went to do a charity do down at Canary Wharf. Hold on a second. I was meant to be the compere for this event. It was Rugby for Heroes, which is a great charity where it helps people who are leaving the armed forces transition back into civilian life by doing a rugby coaching qualification. And my mate sponsored it, Patrick Cassidy from Cassidy Construction. So they asked me, would I go and do the charity raffle and be the compere for that? I tell you who's behind it as well is the guy off that makeover program who's just on Come Dancing, Strictly Dancing. Nick Knowles, he's involved as well. And I've not met him, but he's involved as well. It's just a good charity. Gets men and women, this was the thing, men and women, back into society by giving them this coaching certificate if they pass, and therefore it allows them to blend into the community because there's so many amateur rugby clubs. So it's a great charity. But I'm there, and luckily Lisa came, my wife, and I'm up in the hotel room. I said, I really feel bad with this now. I'm in agony. And I said, I'm just going to get a bath. And then I don't remember the rest. Lisa said I started talking absolute rubbish. No difference there then. Then I was in the bath and had terrible diarrhea and sickness. Right? Started vomiting uncontrollably. Temperature going through the roof. And I said, tell Patrick I just can't come down. I just can't do it. I'm in this hotel suite, about 400 quid or whatever, if it hadn't been donated to the charity. I felt terrible. I couldn't do anything. So I had a terrible night that night. In the morning, we managed to get back to Warwick, where we were living. Phoned the doctor. It was just towards the end of the COVID thing. And the doctor said, well, can you send me a picture of it? They weren't seeing you at the time. I said, well, not really. I said, this boil was in a really uncomfortable place. He said, where is it? I said, on my arse. He said, well, can you get your wife to do it? Stop sniggering at the back because it's not funny, this. So I had to bend over and say, Lisa, would you mind? She took a photo, then showed me it on the showed me the picture on my mobile. And it was like something out of the Alien, growing out of what I thought was my bottom. But it wasn't. It was this, what I thought was a boil. I sent the photo to the doctor and I knew there was something up straight away because he replied immediately. He said, get yourself to hospital. They're the experts. That's not a boil. That's an abscess. And that's not your arse, you idiot. That's your scrotum. Sorry to be so graphic, but men, we don't talk about our illnesses enough. And we need to. Because if you've got something like that on your body, you need to get it looked at. So we went down to the hospital. Lisa drove me. I could hardly walk. I was walking like John Wayne on steroids. That was terrible. I can't explain to you the pain I was in. Straight in, quick look at it. Within 5 minutes, I was admitted. I was on an intensive care ward. They were pumping me with antibiotics and they saved my life. And I'm not exaggerating because they said it was sepsis. It was setting in because of this abscess. Nothing to do with my diabetes, by the way. You could get this. Anybody could get this. You get a cut, you get an infection, and that infection turns to an abscess. And then your body starts fighting it. And I don't know if you know what sepsis is. It's effectively your body, your whole body fighting this infection. So it fucks up every other part of your body. They took my temperature. It was 41. And they said, if you'd left it another day, we wouldn't have been able to pull you back. They told me this afterwards. So they put me in a bed. They put the intravenous in for the old antibiotics and drugged me up to the eyeballs. Spent the first night there, sweating like I don't know what. Didn't seem to sleep. Every half hour, this black bloke, who's a black kind of relief nurse. What a great guy he was, right? He'd come in and wake me up. And after about the fifth time of waking me up, I said, hey, mate, can you stop waking me up? I'm trying to sleep. He said, no, we have to keep waking you up to make sure everything's all right and do all the blood tests and everything. They thought I was going to die overnight. I didn't know this. And then the next morning, I said to the doctor, well, thanks a lot. How do you know? I go, yeah, it's fine. Apart from, why did you move me? He said, what? I said, why did you move me in the middle of the night? And I had all these people. I said, I need to be on a different ward. I had all these loonies looking through the curtains at me and pulling faces at me. And he just went, I was delusional. I was seeing things. I was tripping effectively, right? Scary. I've never been ill. I don't know about you. I know a lot of blokes I've spoken to about this say, oh, no, I've never been ill. I mean, I've had a broken leg or a broken foot and whatever, and the flu, but I've never been ill. I used to say on the radio to people, the best cure for illness or sickness is to go self-employed, because you're self-employed. You don't get paid if you're off, right? What an ignorant prat I was. I just didn't understand proper illness. So anyway, they pumped me up. Then I lost control. So they put me in a separate room because they didn't want me to infect everybody else. So anyway, I had a nice room, kind of. And I had my own shower, although I couldn't really get to it. And it was just, I did all the embarrassing things like soil myself, all of those things. And you know what? And this is why I won't have a word said against it. The NHS were fantastic. They're fantastic. When you're at the sharp end, no, I was at the sharp end. When you need them, our NHS is the best in the world. And I don't want them to be scrimping and saving and thinking, can we use that thing again? I just want to be looked after. And from the little Asian lady who every morning came in and gave me a cup of tea and gave me my breakfast. The food was abysmal, by the way. That's a separate issue. Right through to the top consultants and neurologists and all these kinds of people, the people who did the scans, the CAT scans. Everybody was marvelous and really cared for me, all on the NHS. They were just coming out of COVID, so they already had sort of isolation wards, which effectively I was in. And it was just incredible. And the other incredible thing, and see, this is what I'm saying. I think you can be a YouTuber at 63 because you've got this experience, which kids haven't got, just simply haven't got. I was watching some Burke on the BBC a few weeks ago, and they were talking about the last mass knifing, and he talked about Dunblane. And I thought, Thomas Hamilton didn't knife those kids to death. He shot them to death. But this bloke didn't know his facts. He'd only just started shaving. So, yeah, it's just a joke. But anyway, so you can be, and I would encourage you to be, a podcaster at 63 or get on YouTube. And, I'm trying to relaunch what I laughingly call my career. And I'm grateful because my existing fan base and other people who are found me are helping me. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I've got a little banner going along, www.buymeacoffee.com, John Gaunt, /John Gaunt. It's just a $5. Some people, a guy yesterday bought 20 coffees, 100 quid, gave me a donation for me to expand these podcasts. So the generosity has been incredible. But let me just go back. The weird thing about when I was in hospital, most of my doctors and my professors, the people looking after me, the people right at the sharp end, the geniuses, they were all women. They were all women. I don't know whether it's that particular specialism, but I found it was all, I just found it incredible. And again, undermined my sexist, I suppose, presumptions. And these women were brilliant. There was a Scottish one. And she came and she said, I need to have a look. And she went, oh my God, she said, I bet that was painful. I said, it's still effing painful. And she laughed her duck off. And then they gave me CAT scans and all these scans because they were worried that the stuff, the poison had dispersed and damaged my kidneys or my liver. Luckily, and I am really lucky, it hadn't done that kind of damage. So they kept me in there for about 10 days or whatever, let me out. And then the consultant again said, I'm giving you these antibiotics because you could really do with staying in a bit longer. But I think it was a bank holiday or something. And they need the beds for other people. They're under such stress. So she said, take these. She said, but they are the domestos of antibiotics. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, just take them and you'll see what I mean. And she's right. It cleans out all germs. Honestly, I was on the Kazi literally for 2 weeks, but I eventually began to physically get better with the love and support of my wife in particular, but also my 2 daughters. And I'd stared down the barrel of death. That's how I see it. I've since found out there's a thing called long-term sepsis where it affects you, mentally. You don't want to be on your own in case something happens again, or you get a sudden pain in your arse and you think, oh no, not again. Yeah, that kind of fear. And it was about a year before I physically got better in terms of having the strength to get up and do something. I was writing my novel, which I've now finished, but it took forever because I'd write a sentence and I'd forget what the beginning of the sentence was. And I'm a go-getter. I used to be writing articles, doing telly, daily phone-in show, getting up at 4 a.m, going to work, not coming back till late, work. And I had all the rewards that go with that. Apart from, I'd lost myself within it, I think. And then within that first year, I lost all my work. Of course I did, because I couldn't do it. I physically couldn't do it. And I certainly couldn't go on and argue with some twat on GB News who because of how I felt, all I wanted to do was deck them. It made quite good telly for one episode, but not long term. You can't build a career. I mean, Oliver Reed tried, didn't he? Was it Parkinson? But you know what I'm trying to get at, don't you? And then it took about a year after that, believe it or not, for my confidence to come back. I've always been confident, but I couldn't. I tried to do some videos and some broadcasts and some radio. I just couldn't do it. Some podcasts. Didn't have the confidence. And then, so I've started doing it now, and I've been doing audio podcasts, and I've been cheered by the people who listen, people like you, who watch, listen, take part, send me comments, emails, or just get in touch on Twitter or Facebook. You know, negative or not negative or positive, I don't care. I started to get a reaction. And then suddenly I felt it coming back. My mojo. And I've got it back now. And I feel great. Look, I'm sitting here today in the back room at my mother-in-law's, right? I'm going to be straight with you. I've lost everything. I had the big house. I had the Jaguars. I had the foreign holiday. I've lost everything through a combination of being so poorly, but also bad luck, the incident with Nazigate, I guess, and the fact that then nobody would employ me. It kind of became that they felt I'm a Nazi, which of course I'm not. The story gets all mixed up, doesn't it? And it also a combination of my own stupidity and arrogance. So I lost everything. So I now live at my mother-in-law's with my wife. Children are obviously now grown up. And then I just felt like I've got to do something. What can I do? I've got my book. And I've got somebody who wants to publish that. So that's moving forward. But my first career really has always been this, talking. I'm pretty good with my mouth. And then somebody said, why don't you do YouTube as well, John? And I thought, no, YouTube? I'm 63. I can't go on there and talk about football. I had a friend who had a son years ago, and he said to me, our kid wants to start doing YouTube. I said, what are you asking me for? He said, well, you know how to do the social media and stuff. Can you have a chat with him? I had a chat with him. And I said, so what do you want to do, lad? And he said, do you know what FIFA is? I said, what, the football then? Yeah. He said, no. He said, the game. I said, no, not really. So he explained FIFA, whatever it was. And I said, so what, you're going to do broadcasts about it? Yeah. We're going to stream and talk about people playing each other. And we're going to stream our matches. I just said, well, good luck with it. Yeah, this is how you can do Twitter. This is how you do Facebook. But the guy now is one of the biggest football I'm not going to say his name, but one of the biggest football YouTubers in the world. In the bloody world. Good luck to him. He found his niche. So I suppose my niche is grumpy old bastard, right? I don't know. Post 63. So I just thought it was all just for kids. It's not for me. But actually, it's about communication. And then let's bring this completely around. So at the moment, our politics here in the United Kingdom, and indeed in the States and around the globe, is in a terrible situation. We don't really have freedom of speech. The press is all dominated by the uber left, yeah, and their agenda. The agenda of the majority of the people, as proved by Trump just winning the election, that's hardly ever mentioned. And look at the way our media, not just the BBC, all of them look down their snooty noses at Trump or Nigel Farage. Look at the way that reform has grown. I don't support any political party. In fact, I told you, I think, I voted Green last time just because when I go bodyboarding down in Cornwall, I don't want to be surrounded by turds, right? I've got a little bit hygienic ever since having sepsis, hygienic obsessed. I'm not quite Howard Hughes yet, but you know where I'm coming from. But our press is so institutionally pro-gay, pro-trans, pro-left, pro-this, yeah? But they don't listen to they think we're plebs because they call themselves progressives. And these people infest the media. I don't think I've ever met many right-wing people in the media. I mean, you've got Andrew Neil at the BBC. You've got Andrew Neil at the BBC. You've got Andrew Neil at the BBC. You just haven't. It isn't representative of the country. I'm not saying it should be stuffed full of people with a right-wing agenda, but it should be a mix, shouldn't it? And it isn't. But it's not just the BBC. It's all the way through broadcasting. And I found it in newspapers as well, not quite the same, but it's all there. They're all of a certain type. And that's what's wrong. But what YouTube and podcasts can give you is the ability to talk directly to people. Here I am. I've got these lights now, right? This is another thing that's amazed me. How many people want to help? How many people are donating to my Buy Me a Coffee? Fantastic. Got me off the dole. It got me off the dole. I'm only earning barely a few pennies or pounds more than the dole, but I'm not on the dole anymore because I'm creating my product and people are saying, I'll donate to that and putting a £5 in, a tenner in, 100, 20, whatever. But it's not just that. A guy completely out of the blue, don't even know him, right? He said, oh, you want some lights for your podcast? I said, well, yeah, I'd love some. He said, well, I've got some. I don't use them. He said, I live near you, near Coventry. He said, we'll meet up. So weeks went past because I've been doing lots of babies, dog sitting, basically, for my daughter. So I've been down there while I've been doing the podcast. And we got to see each other the other day. And I said, so he said, oh, I got the lights. He said, unfortunately, when I went in the garage, the mice had eaten one of the cables. I said, oh, don't worry. I'll just have one of them and I'll get the other one fixed. He said, no, I'm not giving that. I'll give you some new ones. His name's Adam, right? He bought me 2 of these studio lights. I don't know how much it cost him. He bought me it. He doesn't know me from Adam, actually. And then we got talking, and I was like just talking to an old mate. I said, how long have you been listening to me then? Oh, I know who you were, he said, but I never used to listen to you when you're on the radio. He said, it's only since you've been doing your podcasts and on YouTube. And he said, I just love what you do because you kind of say what I believe. Even sometimes you say things I definitely don't believe, but I can't stop watching you. So I'd just like to help you. What's that about? What's that about? It's just flipping fantastic, isn't it? What a generous gesture. So he's giving me these lights. So I haven't quite worked out how to use them properly yet, but we're getting there. Next thing is a green screen. I'm not asking for one, by the way, but I need a green screen next so we don't have to have the curtains. I've got somebody I used to work with ages ago. He's got a studio that I helped build in London. And there's talk about me going there as well. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But what is happening is that ordinary people are engaging with me and loving what I'm saying. Or even if they're not loving it, are just loving the fact that somebody's saying it and they can engage. And so soon we'll do live streams and soon we'll do live shows and we'll have people contributing and we'll have guests. That's where I want to take it to. But when I did this before, I had this vision of, I'll set up my own radio station. I don't want to do that. I just want to do me. And this is me, as Mike Yarwood used to say. I just want to be me. And if I've got thousands of people watching, brilliant. If I've only got a few hundred, brilliant. I mean, I had a YouTube video last week that got 7,000 views. For me, that's incredible. I mean, obviously, when I was on the radio, we had 1 million listeners. I'm not sure whether we'll ever get there, but that's not quite my ambition. It's just to talk about the things that bother me. And that's where this YouTube thing comes in. YouTube is for old fellas like me, just like it's for my mate's son, who's become almost a millionaire by talking about, beyond me, talking about computer football games. Good luck to him. I don't think I'm going to be that financially successful from this, but it might earn me a living. But most importantly, it allows me at 63 to talk about the agenda I want to talk about. Watching the farmers' protest today. It's not being covered properly. GB News are doing a good job. I'll give them the credit there. But I just want to be able to talk about what bothers me. And I'll stand or fall on what I say. And I might be changed or modified by what my listeners say. But I'm not going to live to an agenda. I have been lucky in my career because when I wrote for The Sun, And I know a lot of people can't believe this. I was never, ever told what to write. There was more censorship when I worked for the BBC. You only had to say the M word or the I word, Muslim, and suddenly the control room was filled with all those what do you call those clothes? Armani suited middle management, all crapping themselves. What's he going to say next? I was just going to say whatever I was going to say. It's just madness. Just madness. It's like at the moment, did you see the Muslim Council of Britain? They've got some sort of press monitor thing. They're saying GB News are racist because they keep slagging off Muslims. But they didn't actually state this was the Muslim Council of Britain's media monitor. But they won't, right? And then I tell you who was on there, and he's really disappointed me. The BBC newscaster, the ones they haven't sacked yet, the one, not Hugh Edwards. What's the other one? Clive Myrie. And he was saying, look at this, it's terrible. Well, Clive, you should be a little bit careful, mate, because you're throwing stones, but haven't you just been told off for not declaring private functions and your income from that? I'm not having a go at you, Clive. I think you're brilliant. I enjoyed your Caribbean series you did. I think you're the best newsreader going, but you're just another one of these uber liberal twats who want to have a go at GB News. Look, if you don't like GB News, don't watch. I said this when I set up Sun Talk. They all said, Polly Toynbee famously said, John Gaunt and Rupert Murdoch, well, I hadn't even met him at the time, are trying to set up Fox News. And I said, well, what's the problem with that? If you have a Fox News, as long as you know what it is, you can decide if you want to watch it. It's like with the newspaper. You can buy any newspaper you want with any political view you want, as long as they don't break the law. But you can't do that with broadcasting. We don't need Ofcom. You've got an off switch. And that's the beauty. And that's why I'm here. Well, I'm also here because I need to try and earn a living. But I'm not here to audition. I'm not auditioning here for hopefully the phone to ring and GB News to offer me, I think they've put the fee down now, 150 quid to go and talk late night to Mark Dolan. Nice guy, I like him a lot. I'm not here for that. The independent media is the future. And what Elon Musk has done, and this is why I'm a great fan of his, now that he's taken over X, Twitter, you say what you want to say, and there's more right-wing views on there than there used to be. It used to be all lefty, didn't it? And you get banned, right? There's none of that anymore. Freedom of speech. I always remember this. You remember Shami Chakrabarti, who I described as the most dangerous woman in the world once in my Sun full-page spread. Really had a go at her. When I got into trouble with this Ofcom nonsense, Nazigate, whatever you want to call it, which, by the way, Ofcom didn't do me for Nazi. They did me for calling him an ignorant pig. I kind of understand that now. However, she supported me. When people said, why are you supporting John Gaunt? John Gaunt said you were the most dangerous woman in the world. She said, for free speech to mean anything, you have to defend the speech of those who you don't particularly like. As it happens, we got on like a house on fire. She's a nice woman. People say to me, what's she like? I bet you hated her. Well, I didn't like her when she was saying some of the things she was saying when she was the boss of Liberty. But I really respected her for saying, I'm going to defend John Gaunt. And there was other people like that, liberals, who normally I'd think, oh, you're in the other camp. But no, they understood that it was a fight about freedom of speech. I was the first person to be cancelled, basically, in Britain, right, in the modern world. And I've never recovered. And financially, I haven't, without a shadow of a doubt. But like now, because I'm fully recovered, because I've got my mojo, and because I've got YouTube, and because I've got people like Elon Musk changing the culture, the atmosphere, I feel I can speak about the things I want to speak about. And I feel there's never been a more potent time for the new media, if that's what you want to call it. Because mainstream media is dead. Don't believe me? Do you still watch EastEnders at 7:30, or do you watch it when you fancy later? Not even on catch-up. You watch it on YouTube. Do you understand what I'm getting at? This guy who I met who gave me the lights, he said, I never watched telly. I just watch YouTube all the time. It was a revelation to me. And I've discovered some great people on YouTube since I've been broadcasting here. It's a whole new world. One of the problems with YouTube is I was on it ages ago, when I did Sun Talk, after Sun Talk, when I was doing Talk to Me Radio, I had something like 78,000 viewing hours. But because I didn't do anything for 2 or 3 years because I was dying, basically, they don't count anymore. So I've still got the subscribers and I've had loads more people sign up. So if you are watching on YouTube, please press the subscribe button. It's very important. But more important is, even if you listen to the audio podcast, could you start watching some of the videos? I've got to get 4,000 watch hours, right, within 12 months. So far, I've got, I think it's 2,300, 2,400. So I'm nearly there. But if you could help me, and the other way of helping is by sharing and liking and subscribing to my channel. Because then as it grows, as I say, I'm going to do live streaming after Christmas and stuff. What I want to do is just be this little bastion of free speech. I don't want to have other presenters working with me. I don't want that. I've done all that. I'm 63. I just want to say what I feel. And then you say what you want to feel or how you feel. And I don't care whether you're 63, 23, 30. Well, don't be too young. 23, 43, 63, 83. I don't care. The revelation to me has been that podcasts and YouTube can find this audience who are not being served. When you sometimes put the telly on and think, this isn't my country. I used to do that when I was on the radio. When I was on BBC London, I used to travel back and I'd listen to James O'Brien. It was like a fucking alternative universe. He was coming out with all this lefty rubbish, well, in my opinion. And his callers were backing him up. I thought, where's he getting them from? Where's he getting these from? And as it happens, he doesn't really get many callers. He rides off the back of Ferrari's audience, or used to. But I don't know. It's just, why won't they let the masses speak? Why do they hate reform so much? I mean, I'm not saying Farage is the answer and is the future. I'm not even saying he's a Trump for our country. But they should reflect what ordinary people think. And this government in particular, I know they've only been here 6 months, but it's what they've done with the pensioners is wrong. It's right that some people should have it taken off them, but the level's too low, yes? Likewise with the situation at the moment with the farmers and the inheritance tax. Well, I'd scrap inheritance tax altogether. You've already paid your tax. Why do you have to pay it again? That just seems to me to be wrong. With the refugees stroke illegal immigrants stroke asylum seekers, we can't carry on putting them up in hotels. I was telling you the other week about a big hotel in Warwick being taken over. It's not good for them and it's not good for us. And it's certainly not good not telling the local community. Today's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday, the man who's alleged to have killed those 3 beautiful little girls in Southport, he's back in court. Are we now going to see a proper picture of him? Even the artist's impression, are we going to see one without him having his jumper over his head? What's going on? And also, are we going to finally find out when Starmer knew about the ricin and the terrorist manual? They do treat us like mushrooms. They keep us in the dark and keep feeding us shit. Right? So that's why I'm going to do my little thing here. And if you can help me, fine. Buy me a coffee. That'd be nice. www.buymeacoffee.com /John Gaunt, or buy me a few if you fancy. Buy me a green screen. No, I'm joking. But basically, I'm just going to do my little thing here. And I'm grateful that I got so ill, because I think it's changed my view on the world, on lots of things. And on a very personal note, the reason I didn't do a broadcast yesterday, the day before, my very best mate, who I'm not going to say his name here either, I went to school with him since the age of 4, right? He texted me the other day. He said, "Oh, I should have told you this," he said, "but I've been getting chest pains." And he said, "I got a real bad one today and it didn't go away." So he drove to the hospital, and he said, "They've admitted me. I've had a heart attack." Anyway, it progresses over the next few days, and he's had a triple bypass yesterday. He was meant to have it 2 weeks ago. He got all ready. They trammed him up and everything. He texted me and said, "Oh, my box, it's great, but we're having a laugh, like, because we're old mates, all gallows humour and stuff, yeah." And then it was cancelled. They didn't have enough staff. And do you know what? He didn't lose his temper about it. It's just, well, somebody obviously needed it more than me. Great guy. Then it was meant to be last Friday. He got cancelled again. Although they didn't bother drugging him up this time or shaving him, so that was a bit better. And then the surgeon came to see him. It's a woman as well, and she said, it was Sunday. She said, I'm definitely going to do it tomorrow. So he had it on Monday. Had the triple bypass, and that term just scares the shit out of everyone, doesn't it? But it looks like it's gone well. And it unnerved me because he's exactly the same age as me. His mum and my mum were best mates. We went to school together. We used to run around the playground singing, "Who wants a game of war? War." And then look at girls and say, "Not you," or whatever. We had our first kind of sexual shenanigans. Not with each other, leave it out, but at the same time. We grew up together. We did plays together. He made me cry because when he was in hospital, well, still in hospital, he sent me a text saying, "Out of everything I've done in my life, John, the best thing was when I did plays with you. And when we had no money and we had that beaten up van and traveling all over the country doing it, we did a show called Meet." He said, "They were my best days." Fucking hell, I was choked. I was completely choked. And so for the last couple of days, I just haven't been in the zone where I felt that I could do a broadcast, or I didn't want to do one. Wasn't interested in slagging off Starmer. More important things, my best mate. Anyway, so we think he's okay. He's come through the operation, and it scares the hell out of you, doesn't it? Because then I spoke to my sister-in-law. She's a nurse, a doctor, and she said, "Well, nowadays it's not routine, but it's almost routine. He'll be okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry." Oh, and it looks like he is. I mean, it's obviously early days. It's early days, but that's friendship, isn't it? And that's me and him. We cannot speak for years, 2 or 3 years, and then suddenly pick up where we were. And it's not all roses around the cottage door. I've argued with him and fallen out with him and told him he's a whatever. In fact, when he came round, I sent him a tweet saying, "Oh, so you're not dead then, you old. See you next Tuesday." Because that's what we're like. We're working class kids. We're still at Hill Farm School in Radford. We've had these varied careers. He's had a fantastic career. I've had a pretty good career. Bit of a roller coaster, but a pretty good career. And it focused my mind. I'm 63, so I've got another 20 odd years. God willing, touch wood, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to do my YouTube John Gaunt TV show. I'm going to do my podcasts. And the only ambition is to tell the truth, my truth, which won't necessarily be your truth. And hopefully you'll share some of your thoughts with me and vice versa. And it's not about, "Oh, you used to have 1 million listeners. You got cool then." Yeah, I'm not. You're missing the point. Yeah, I've had the big numbers. I've had the big cars. I wouldn't mind having a jack. Well, no, I don't know about the jack. But I've had the big cars. I've had the holiday. I've had all that. And yes, of course, I'd like to do a bit of that again. But it's not what's driving me anymore. Just like being on a big radio station. It's not driving me anymore. Because what's it mean? Because in the end, I've been to so many funerals this year where there's hardly anyone there. That's not for me. My other best mate who died this time last year, in fact, it's the anniversary in a few days' time. There's no point. No point. So I'm happy. So it's never too late. So can you be a YouTuber at 63? Yes, you can, as Bob the Builder said. Can you build a future for yourself? Yes, you can, with new technology, with the new media. And that's what Gaunty is trying to do. Thank you for listening. If you've got kids, please give them a kiss, give them a hug. Don't forget to tell them that you love them. And if you can help me out, just go to www.buymeacoffee.com and donate whatever you can. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope I haven't bored you, but I felt I needed to get this off my chest today. Huh? Can we do it? Yes, we can. Thank you very much indeed. Speak later. If you want to comment, Twitter, Facebook, all the rest of it, or send me an email, john@johngaunt.com. There we go. See you later. Cheers.